All right, so you have an excellent analogy for why there's so many sects of Christianity that I've never thought of before, and I would like you to
give it out.
Yeah, redole that to me. Provide the knowledge.
We actually haven't had just like a straight up discussion on Outcasts for a while, and so I feel like we should just let this go wherever it goes. But a thought occurred to me.
Where's my whiskey?
A thought occurred to me about all the different hundreds, possibly thousands of divisions in Christianity, and it's because so many people kind of interpret the message differently, and they see more importance in some parts than in other. Like a lot of Christians give tons of credit to the Old Testament, and some don't really give it any credit, and whatever. So I thought of this analogy where Christianity is like a gentleman's club, a gentleman's social club. And we have the original gentleman's social club, and this is the things that they're about. They're about exotic dancers, smoking cigars, and drinking whiskey. Those are the things that they want to do. That's what they stand for. These things are like the way that the way they define gentlemen. This is how gentlemen relax. These are the gentlemanly arts. Whatever.
This is how the gentlemen be.
This is how this is how gentlemen be. So then eventually what happens? You get gentlemen's clubs that pop up all over, and they all share this ideology. Well, eventually you get one that says, well, we like the exotic dancers, and we like the cigars, but instead of whiskey, we want to drink tequila. And the original gentlemen's club says, yeah, that's fine. That's still in the spirit of the gentlemanly arts, and we're fine with that. That goes on for a while, and now that this original division has come up, then as we kind of get farther away from that original center point, it comes up again. You get a new gentleman's club that says, well, we like the exotic dancers, and we're okay with the tequila or the whiskey, but the cigars, we want to be able to smoke cigarettes too. And maybe that original gentleman's club is like, well, that's okay. That's still all right. And the second gentleman's club that just wanted have a choice between whiskey and tequila, they don't care. They see that division sort of as the same as their original division, and they're okay with it too. And then you get the next iteration. Someone understands it differently. Somebody doesn't like to smoke at all. Okay, we have a gentleman's club, and we have exotic dancers, but we're smoke-free, and you can have whiskey, tequila, or beer. And from there, it becomes more and more dilute from what the original concept was. And this is like the same thing that we see with Christianity. Jesus is the exotic dancer. That's the core. That's what everybody holds to. That's the one thing, right? That's the one thing that they all hold on to. But then the details, the other beliefs, the smaller things of, do we hate homosexuals? Is it okay to have polyfiber blend clothing? Is it okay to eat shellfish? Like all these other beliefs start to go by the wayside because different people interpret them differently. They affect people like, well, I don't want to smoke cigars. I want to smoke cigarettes, or I don't want to smoke either. And so the division goes and goes and goes because every person ends up reinterpreting it differently, which is why I think when you look to a religion like Christianity that is so widespread and fairly old, the longer it goes on, once we had that original rift in the Catholic Church, it's just more and more and more like the branches of a tree.
Well, you know, one of the things that when you mentioned this to me earlier, one of the things I found fascinating was the idea of like, so when you have the gentleman's club that still has the exotic dancers, but then they put the exotic dancers in costumes instead of, say, topless.
Right.
And then they also have club sandwiches and then it's smoke-free.
Right.
And now the original gentleman's club is looking at that gentleman's club and being like, well, no, you've gotten too far off the mark. You're not really a gentleman's club anymore. You're something else.
Right. That's actually kind of where we...
cult.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like it reminds me sort of the LDS Church. We've had this discussion of like, are Mormons Christians? And you brought up what I think is a great point. You say no because Mormons are as much Christians as Christians are Jews. Because, yeah, they have the same God in a way, but they've changed it so much. Now the strippers are wearing costumes. The gentleman's club is serving sandwiches. You don't even have to have alcohol. You can have club soda, and it's smoke-free. But there's this one concept but everything else is different. And so then you have older gentlemen's clubs saying, no, that's not. That's just a strip club. That's not a gentleman's club anymore. And it's totally the same thing. And it's the problem of there is no one. This is one of the ways of why holy books fall so far short, because they're all just multiple choice. Everyone can interpret however they want, and so it becomes different to every person because everyone is assessing it with their own standards. And that is why it changes so much. I mean, Islam can't agree. How many divisions are there in Islam? Probably not as much as Christianity, but it's also not as old of a religion. And
well, I wonder if Islam, where it's derived from, had the better ability to quell the certain branches more readily.
Well, they kind of come from the same place if we're going to trace it back to Judaism.
No, I know, but even at the time, no, not Judaism, but I mean, as far as when Islam started having those divisions, it was in a, like brutal landscape at the time that I think it was easier for them to quell the people trying to start off.
I don't know.
Because in Europe, it almost happened while they were far enough away that it was harder to,
I don't know. The division of Christianity in Europe got pretty brutal for a while there.
Well, that's true too. But not enough to quell, is why I'm curious.
No, not enough to quell, but there was definitely violence. I mean, I believe Sir Thomas More, who is now a saint of the Catholic Church, actually had people in Great Britain burned at the stake for daring to own a copy of the Bible in English. That's pretty brutal and repressive, and that was an attempt. So
he's a saint now?
Yeah, he's a saint of the Catholic Church, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, he was a defender of the faith.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And, burning people at the stake for the crime.
I picture saints as doing like nicer good things, not like conquering good things. As far as saints in the church.
Do you not understand the Catholic Church?
I'm just saying. Most of the saints I know are like the super nice ones that help the children across the river and shit like that.
This is my quote of the day. This is my personal hobby horse right now. That thing from Christopher Hitchens. Religions, we have the right to remember the kinds of things that religions did when they were strong. Just because they can't get away with that kind of stuff anymore. Yeah. That's why they put forward the nice saints now.
I didn't even know about the bad saints. I'm just saying, I'm uneducated in this department. I didn't know there was bad saints.
I don't know how many.
Hardcore saints.
Let's call them hardcore. I don't know how many other hardcore saints there are, but
yeah, I found that interesting that it was such an aggressive act would be something that got his attention. That's interesting. The thing that's been bothering me, like, as we've had comments that they talk about, where we point out something and then people say, well, no, that's not true, and then all this other stuff is true, and on both sides of like Christianity and Islam, and I find it kind of, I get a little frustrated, like when I have to go to their book and like show them the bad things in their book, because I mean, I guess I understand that. I know that the book has good and bad.
Yeah.
I understand that. I know that the Bible has good and bad. I know that the Book of Mormon has good and bad.
Sure.
But there's two problems I have, is that either A, I know that I'm cherry picking the bad stuff and you're cherry picking the good stuff, because I'm trying to get you to make sure you see more than just that good stuff. And so it's not because I cherry pick the bad stuff that I don't know that there's good stuff in it, but the thing that I think frustrates me the most is I sit there and go, why am I defending, or why am I attacking or defending either side of this book when, like, I have no reason to believe there's any truth in it? Like, I get frustrated sometimes that I even take the time to do it. It's like, why do I even care about this fucking book?
I feel the same way. I was having an argument on the internet, which of course nobody ever really wins. But people, when I'm arguing with them about religion on the internet, eventually they just sort of give up and go away. Because I never get tired of it. But it does get frustrating when you're trying to be like, no, don't you see how, like, this thing that God did, that is being claimed as morality, is absolutely immoral? Like, don't you see that? And you do kind of have to come back to that point. Like, why are we even arguing about this book in the first place? Because Christians have never shown that this book is in any way authoritative. Mm-hmm. And when you line up all the contradictions, and when you line up all the historical inaccuracies, and then the geographical inaccuracies that are, say, in the New Testament, and the archaeological evidence that's not there or wrong, the claims of the book are not backed up by archaeology. In fact, they're refuted by archaeology. It's like, why are we even talking about this book like it matters? Mm-hmm. when we talk about the Book of Mormon, supposedly found by Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith's house is supposed to be built on what was a battlefield for some of the mythic figures in the Book of Mormon, where there was a battle where I believe it was either fought by both sides combined were 1 million soldiers, or the death toll was actually 1 million. I don't remember which. There's no evidence. Do you know how many bodies there would be? Skeletons? There would be something. Weapons? Rusted iron weapons? I mean, there's supposed to be iron chariots and all this kind of stuff. There is nothing. There is zero. It's as if a battle never happened there. I mean, I hate to be...
Suspicious much?
Yeah, it's just... But, in spite of that, people are like, oh, no, it's true, and we know that it's true. Why are we even talking about it? You have zero.
Yeah.
You have zero. We shouldn't be talking about it. I should be asking you instead of harping about the immoralities in the book or the places where the book contradicts itself. You should be telling me why I care about the book in the first place.
I mean, that's the thing that bothers me so much is that I don't understand how, if God was actually going to give us a scripture or something like that, and that was the only way he could reach out to us because he sucks at any other ideas.
Right.
Totally uncreative. You would think that the book would at least have something to completely either validate the truth of it 100%, easily, especially by the means and methods that we have available at our disposal today, or he would make the damn thing itself supernatural. Where
the book would literally levitate.
It couldn't burn, or it couldn't. You throw it in a lake and it would float and not actually get wet. It's completely waterproof.
If you ever tried to put it on a surface or a table, literally it would just hover.
Yeah.
And you could do any kind of scientific test, and it would be there's no detectable way. And I mean,
some suspension of reality would have to occur.
It couldn't burn.
I mean, because he's supposed to be supernatural, yet we don't get any supernatural science. I mean, it's like I said earlier, the fact that the Bible is interesting because it has so much stuff that happened. I mean, the Book of Mormon. Let's not even talk about that. And it's happened because the evidence for that is completely non-existent. At least there's some pretend evidence for some of the things that actually occurred.
Some of the locations mentioned actually exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas in the Book of Mormon, they do not.
And some of the people and some of the actual movements of people are accurate, some are not. Blah blah blah.
Like Pontius Pilate was a real person. We have independent biblical records of Pontius Pilate existing.
Exactly. But what I find so curious is that throughout that book, God and Jesus do all these miraculous things to help their believers along, or to help certain groups of people, and to show them the truth of the matter and things like that. Yet meanwhile, in a scientific society, it hasn't happened since. Ever since we've been able to basically truly write this stuff down, not hear it word of mouth, and not all of that, actually make true records of these miraculous things happening.
Well, and that's actually to me, in a way, that's kind of misleading, because miracle claims today are in fact very commonplace.
None of them are actually, they're all disproven.
Yeah, but okay, think about what the Bible is. Think about what the Bible is. I mean,
what city? Hang on, shut up. A city that's fire and brimstone has happened.
I'm going to tell you. So think about what the Bible is claimed to be. The Bible is claimed to be an eyewitness account of events. It's not, but it's actually all hearsay. But let's just take it for what they claim it is. An eyewitness account of events from multiple sources who supposedly all agree and who all saw the same thing. How many alien abduction cases have that exact evidence? A lot. There are people who are entire families, like husbands, wives, children, who are all like, yes, we were all simultaneously kidnapped by aliens, probed, whatever, returned to Earth. Who believes that claim? Not most people. 99% of people don't give that any credence. There are miracle claims all the time from other religions, from places like India, where Indian gurus are said that they to be able to walk on water, fly without the aid of technology.
Yeah, so you're going in the complete opposite direction when I was talking about.
But no, because that's the thing. It's like you take eyewitness accounts that people could write down and report, post on the internet, do whatever. No one cares. But you take eyewitness accounts and put them in a book written by sheep herders in the Bronze Age, and it becomes perfectly reasonable.
Well, because it's been around so long. Because it was reasonable to accept that at that time. We don't accept the alien stories now because it's not reasonable based on the evidence we have.
it was reasonable for the people then to believe. I mean, it probably really wasn't reasonable, but at least in their own estimation. At least in their own estimation, they were living in a mythic age, and you know, things like this happened. Things happened they couldn't explain, and therefore they just assumed, you know, lightning, volcanoes. They didn't know what that was, so that's what they attributed it to. But that's the thing. If any of the things in this book happened today, and were reported in the same way that alien abductions are, no one would buy it.
No, but that's what I'm talking about. The large scale events. I'm talking about the floods, the destroying of Sodom and Gomorrah, the parting of the Red Sea, the big scale events that we could actually like witness, record, and be like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
Because like you're saying, it's only the things that survive now are these little small scale events that can be like, oh, my friend told me my friend and this and that and this happened, and it's like, oh, I saw it goes, whatever. It's small scale. Yeah. Because they're not real.
Right.
Because the big scale shit that went down in here doesn't happen. He doesn't destroy cities at a whim. He doesn't do anything to majorly affect our lives. And that's the kind of miracles I'm talking about as far as like his impact. Not his little like when Jesus makes bread into water or whatever.
Right.
You know, I'm talking about the big scale shit where he destroys cities and it's like, why don't we have that anymore?
Well,
that would be a pretty big sign to me if fucking fire and brimstone rained from the sky.
Right.
Not from a volcano.
Right.
Just from nowhere in the sky and just destroyed a whole city. And it was because
impressive.
And it was like the worst city ever, like New York.
Right. Las Vegas. Let's say Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, I think Vegas is cool.
but you're right. Those things don't happen.
Yeah.
And it's one of the ways you can see how small religion has gotten. That's been the theme today. You know, what could religion get away with when it was strong? Those kinds of claims it could get away with. It can't get away with that anymore.
Yeah.
Because we're all a little too wise. We're all a little too worldly. Like, we understand that like fire and brimstone doesn't just rain from the heavens.
Exactly.
And, you know...
But if it did, wouldn't we be like, okay, well, something's going on?
No, absolutely. And it's one of those things where it's totally a case of, you know, Pix or GTFO.
Yeah.
Pix or it didn't happen. I mean, it just... If someone came to you and said, New York's been destroyed, rain of fire and brimstone leveled Manhattan, and everyone is dead, would you believe it? Or would you go get a newspaper or go to the internet and go to the NewYorkTimes.com? Would you not, in fact, try to confirm it? Like, that's the thing. Out of hand, you wouldn't even believe it. You wouldn't. But...
yeah, Noah flooding the entire world. Totally plausible.
So yeah, Noah being involved in a flood that swallows the entire world and kills everything.
And no geological evidence.
And the geological evidence does, in fact, not back it up. Refutes it, in fact. And you're like, well, it's in the book.
We're back to Prankster God.
Oh, man, we are. And I don't much like Prankster God, actually.
Oh, he's my favorite. I think he'd be cool to hang out with. I'd like to torture people.
with just, like... See, I would appreciate a Prankster God who tortured people by, like, I have taken your car keys.
Yeah.
And I have
replaced them with Skittles.
Right, I have replaced them with Skittles. And your actual car keys have been moved into the slot in the car where they go. So you'll look everywhere for them because you'd never look in the car. Why would they be there? It's just... Yeah, no, I am Prankster God. I have put your car keys in the microwave.
That's the kind of torture I was talking about.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I know. That I replaced them with Skittles. I like that. Because, bonus, now you have Skittles. Exactly. And you know that
now
God
you must go
you.
on the journey of your keys, but you have Skittles to keep you warm.
Right, exactly. That would be better than go kill these children because their parents have offended me.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that bothers me about those stories, too, is it's like, you know, okay, God's all-powerful, blah, blah, blah. Like, then how is it that he cannot come up with better methods?
I don't know, and I've actually heard it described as how the Bible is like a series of failures. Because it's like...
yeah?
No, really.
It is.
It's like, okay, God creates the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. They fall from grace. He has to kick them out. Civilization goes on for a while. God has to flood the earth. Kill everyone, start over. After the flood, people build the Tower of Babel to try to ascend to heaven. That pisses God off. God destroys the Tower of Babel, separates everyone into like different languages and scatters them across the earth. Has to start over again, and it's just like again and again and again and again, and then we get to, you know, all right, God scrapping the entire old covenant. Here comes Jesus, gonna be the perfect sacrifice, and we start the fuck over. And it's just, it's so bad. But you know, I gotta say, because I've been thinking about this for a while, because I've brought up a couple times, like, which Bible verse is my favorite Bible verse, and I think I've actually narrowed it down, not specifically to verses, but I've narrowed it down to 2 stories. One is the Hebrews escaping from the completely legendary captivity in Egypt that never happened. Because in that story, Moses goes to Pharaoh, who is enslaving the Hebrews, and he says, "Let my people go," famously. Charlton Heston, "Let my people go." And Pharaoh actually wants to. And God hardens his heart. The Bible actually says it twice. There's 2 different points where specifically it uses the language, God hardens Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh says no.
Yeah.
And then, so he says no first, then some plagues happen, and then Moses comes back again and says, "Let my people go." And God again reaffirms that he hardens Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh says no. And God says that he does this because he wants to show his glory. He wants to show his power and his majesty. But what I love about this, specifically said, God takes Pharaoh's free will away and makes him say no, and then kills people to prove a point. Look how powerful I am. Look what happens if you fuck with me.
It's really like a...
That is heinous.
It's such a... It seems like a fireworks show, too. Like,
that's like what a
supervillain does. He just wants to show off his plagues, you know? He's like, well, I built this plague in my lab. I want to see what it looks like.
That is like... That's like supervillain shit.
Yeah.
Man. I mean, it really is. That the bad guy is like, well, I'm going to give them terms that they can't possibly comply with so that I can go through with my evil plan no matter what.
You know, it's so
Because what I really want is death.
What's interesting now that I'm reading the Quran and reading, catching up on what it's all about, it is fascinating how much like the Bible it is. In certain ways, in other ways completely different.
Well,
but
it's largely
it has a lot of comments of, like, Allah will harden their hearts, basically. It puts it in different wording.
Right.
But it's like, and like the non-believers, like, Allah won't allow them to receive the message. So
right.
They won't be able to convert anyone.
No matter what,
like,
right.
You know,
so you have to kill them or something like that.
Or various things of that nature. But I saw like 2 already that were exactly that same reference, though, where he's like, oh, don't worry, they're not going to be, like, because it even says, like, one of the chapters I was reading was talking about, like, if you make treaties with them, that you shall obey the treaty to every jot and tittle, basically,
right.
unless they betray it, and then you can betray them.
Right.
But it also said that, like, don't trust these treaties anyway because they are wrongdoers and they have evil in their hearts, and so just always be ready that, you know, so never actually trust them, but do the agreements as needed. And I think the agreements are actually specific to, like, these times of peace where they need to make the pilgrimage to Mecca, and so they're trying to, like, seek peace. But then it's like after that, then game on. Right. It's almost like fucking Wayne's World where they're not playing hockey in the street. And it's like, car, and they move all the stuff, and then game on, and move all the stuff back.
That's an excellent metaphor. So the other one, and I think that this is the most telling of the fact that the God of the Bible is a complete and total monster, because this is like the best, to me, this is just the best description of his character, is actually the story of Abraham and Isaac. When Abraham is commanded to take his son up the mountain and to sacrifice him, because that's what God wants. And I love, because the defense for this that I hear from Christians is they always rush out to say, well, no, God made a provision, and when Abraham went to do it, God stopped his hand and said, no, there's a ram I have prepared, and that's the actual sacrifice I want. This doesn't correct the matter of the story for me, because what the crux is, God just wanted to know that he would do it. Yeah. And that's fucked up. No, I didn't really need you to kill your son. I just needed to know that you would. I needed to know that you would go to any length and do anything that I commanded you, much like William Lane Craig, who's defending the violence that we get from fundamentalist Islam and saying it's fine, they just have the wrong God. It's this mentality of violence, and you will do anything that the dear leader commands because he is unquestionable. And that's the absolute description. That's the God of the Bible. That's who he is. That's what he wants. You don't necessarily have to do it, but he needs to know that you are willing to do it. And that's
which is
sick.
retarded because he already knows, and he already has a plan for us,
Wow.
and all of those other contradictions that come into play. I mean, the contradictions when talking about, especially a specific religion, if you don't even wander away, if you just stay like to Christianity, the contradictions and the goddamn figure eight fucking circle bullshit that they do in their head to keep this thought alive and believing it in their brain, I don't know how they function. I don't know how you can accept all these contradictions, like the.
I think that most people don't think about it.
Well, but
I think
when you're talking to them and you watch them jump from subject to subject, because as soon as you shoot one point down, they're like, oh, well, anyway, and they're like little ADA children, ADD children, where they're like, oh, and they go over here. So they're like, oh, that's wrong. Oh, well, what about this? And then they forget that you just proved that wrong.
If to any atheists out there, if you've ever had a really long discussion with a theist, usually a Christian theist, at least in my experience, if you keep knocking down points, they jump. They jump from one point to the next. They move the goalposts. They go and they go and they go and they go. And if you talk long enough, and I've had this happen more than once, they will get back to their first point. And then you will go around the circle again. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter. They just keep hopping because in their head, it's the paradox thing. It must be right. I'm just not understanding it. And so they do. They push it. I just don't understand it yet. But it must be right because I know that it's right. And I know that it's right because I know that it's right. But that's really the thought process.
No, it is. I've seen it.
And it's really, and that's the thing, I find it really funny because it's interesting. I didn't talk about this in the actual story, but the former minister, Theresa McBain, the reason that she became an atheist is because she became a minister, and she's like, I need to continue my studies as a minister. She's been a minister for 9 years. I need to continue my studies because she always had questions. She said, but I need to understand this as deeply as possible because the congregation is coming to me for answers. And the more she studied it, the more she didn't find the answers, and the more problems were cropping up in her head. She's like, well, why would God do this? And why would this? And she understood it less and less and less, and she could make excuses for it less and less and less. And I got to tell you, with so many atheists who I've talked to, I mean, people like Matt Dillahunty was studying to go to seminary to be a minister, and that's the thing. The more he got into it, and the more he understood it, the less he could just take it. And I can't tell you how many atheists I have spoken to were like, that's what happened. Knowledge. It's hilarious to me that in the book of Genesis, the first sin in the Bible, the thing that makes man fall is desire for knowledge, because that is the bane of religion.
Yep. The
moment you start questioning, the moment you start reading, the moment you try to start understanding stuff, it's the biggest threat. And I think that's why it's so hard to talk to Christians in this country, because they don't know, they don't study, they put it out of their mind, because blind faith is what they need, and it's this purest. And
it's so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
But
not
I also
to educate
think
yourself.
I also think that's why the state of Christianity in the United States. I mean, I know to the rest of the world we probably look really crazy, and to a degree we actually kind of are. But you have to understand, rest of the world. Let me speak to the rest of the world for a moment. We're actually not as crazy as we come off. It's sort of a total special effect that is generated by the fundamentalists in this country, who unfortunately have a pretty good stranglehold on our politics. And the reason they've got that, I think, is because a lot of us are apathetic. But most religious people in a country, specifically Christians, I should say, because Muslims are like 0.6% of the population here, and Mormons are only 1.4% of the population. But specifically to Christians, most of them are incredibly apathetic. The amount of churches we have in this country, they couldn't hold all the people who claim to be Christian. Most Christians in this country don't go to church regularly. Most Christians in this country don't read the Bible regularly. I mean, I have met Christians who don't know anything about the Bible, but they say they believe because they were raised by apathetic Christians, and they got some level of the talk and the indoctrination, and they know about Jesus, and they'll say God is love, and Jesus loves everybody, wants everybody happy. He doesn't have anything against homosexuality, and the Bible would never say that we should do violence or anything like that, because they don't know, they haven't read it. So we kind of show one thing, but we're actually not that thing by and large. And that, I think, is what is really scary about our political system, is that the people who have a hold of our political system don't represent the people.
The political system doesn't represent the people.
No, but you know, and I've also heard discussions about how even the idea of Republicans and Democrats, the majority of Americans, something like I think 60%, are really middle of the road politically. They don't have a far right or a far left ideology, and it's like there's like a 20% on each side that they galvanize each other, and that is why our political discussion sounds so crazy. And a lot of, especially on the right, a lot of the galvanization comes from a Christian fundamentalist standpoint, where even most Christians in this country don't. They fall into that same 60% middle of the road category, and I think it makes us look a lot crazier than we really are. But
I actually think the scale is further to the left on like when you do populist votes on everything. I think the scale is much further to the left than middle of the road. But you definitely have the money is controlling it, and the money prefers that conservative right wing way of thinking because it's easier to control from.
Well, definitely.
It's easier stance to have.
Yeah, I mean, people who are already used to taking some sort of authority figure and just going with whatever that authority figure says. That's actually a scary mentality to see a political party as really valuing in a democratic world.
Well, and God has a plan, and that we could never interrupt that plan, and that
we can't kill ourselves with global warming.
People. Yeah, it justifies everything.
Yeah,
it much more readily than like, wait, God doesn't have a plan, and maybe we should talk about this as people, because it justifies war. It justifies like, well, these people are being bad. We got to go give them democracy. That's I mean, we can burn as much oil and we can burn through as much electricity as we need because we don't have to worry about climate change.
Right.
God's going to take care of that too. I mean, it justifies everything.
Yeah.
Whereas on the left, if you don't have that thought so much and you're more thinking about people, then you start going, climate change could be bad for our kids, and this use of all these natural resources that are unreplenishable.
Right.
Maybe not a
maybe
best
not
idea,
so
and so on and so forth. Then you're thinking about it on a different terms.
Yeah.
And they don't want you over there because they want power.
Yeah.
It's money in politics. I don't even want to have that discussion.
No, I know. But this has been a good discussion. We haven't had a free-form discussion in a while.
Hopefully people like it.
I know. Hopefully people watch it. If we get good feedback on it, maybe we'll do more. Maybe we'll just shoot the shit and talk about weird, random things. But for now...
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Outcasts out.